Lisa Bowles, your Soul Mapper, with the next episode of Soul Map TV. A few years ago, I ran across a book at the library that rocked my world. And it took me a while to figure out why I was so in love with the book, aside from the fact that its author is a Canadian boy who's relocated to the UK. He's a journalist and has a really powerful, unique voice that's both self-help but data-driven. And not the kind of self-help that you kind of want to go over reading, yeah. His name is Canal, and the book that I first ran across was called In Praise of Slow. Now, for entrepreneurial types who are interested in generating a certain kind of success, going slow, not that appealing. But he made such a profound case for the cost of not going slow when it's appropriate to, that it blew my mind. In fact, everything that he's written, and the one that the new book I'll tell you about in just a minute, is really born of a epiphanic moment. A moment that was so catalytic for him personally, a window into a completely different direction for him was opened. That's what happened with In Praise of Slow. I want to encourage you to grab yourself a copy, but today I want to talk about his latest book. I interviewed him twice about In Praise of Slow, once in late 2008, and then again, I'm going to say early 2010. So about 18 months, almost 2 years had passed since we'd spoken. And the interviews were related, but really different. We had a chance to talk again as this new book publishes, and it's called The Slow Fix. And I was intrigued by the title because we tend to look towards things as needing fixing, but again, he's addressed it in a very intriguing, paradoxical way. And knowing him, I knew he'd have some interesting things to say. I'm going to read you a couple of quick quotes from the book. I picked it up and couldn't put it down, and I want to suggest that you consider getting your hands on a copy or getting a copy for yourself. And think about this as a purposepreneur. Every quick fix whispers the same seductive promise of maximum return for minimum effort. The trouble is the equation doesn't add up. Think about it for a moment. Is worshiping at the altar of the quick fix making us happier, healthier, and more productive? The hard truth is, a quick fix never truly fixes anything at all, and sometimes it just makes things worse. This particular quote, kind of grabbed me by the throat. And the reason for it is this. Most of the time when people come to us looking for help, it's because they're feeling profoundly uncomfortable. Something in their life is not what they want it to be, and they want it fixed, and they want it fixed fast. And when we go seeking help, often we want the same thing. But there's a seductive dark side to this promise, this drive, and the way business sometimes rises to meet it. What we can do is let's just say this really straight out, and this is a slight rant on my part, bear with me. We can leverage this dark desire for something that actually will not provide us with what we actually need. And what Canal has done with this book is asked us to tell the truth about it. And I think as purposepreneurs, it's something we have to do if we are what we say we are, people committed to changing the way business itself is done. There's another quote here that I thought was really extraordinary. Even in business, where speed is usually an advantage, our fondness for the quick fix is backfiring badly. Think about this in your own life. Think about the things that you've purchased. Think about the way business has dealt with you. And I bet as you listen to this, you're probably nodding, thinking, contemplating, remembering, and thinking about the way that you want to conduct yourself in business. This book tells many of us, in such gorgeous prose, it tells us why we have the misgivings we do. It also tells us why we need to switch out and why that's hard. Why going slow, even though we know it's something we need to do, should do, is appropriate to do, is hard to do. I have a couple of minutes of a recent interview with Canal I actually want to share with you. This is an extended edition of the Soul Map because What this guy has to say is so good, I know you need to know this. Give it a listen. Pay close attention. This man knows things. And if you feel inspired, please go get yourself a copy of the book. If not, one you keep for yourself, check it out at the library. That's where I found his first book. It's a doozy. Here's Carl and I talking just a couple of days ago. What has writing this book done for you? And why did that personal epiphany feel important to tell us about?
It's funny, I almost didn't use that personal epiphany at the beginning of the book partly because it felt very shameful somehow. I mean, this book is now coming out. I mean, In Praise the Slow came out in 2004 and really completely transformed my life from the inside out. You know, I went from a before to an after, the before being rushed all the time, constantly racing the clock, to an after where I still have a full, exciting, interesting life, but I don't feel rushed anymore. You know, I've reached my tempo giusto, you know, I've reached the right speed for me. So my metronome seems to be working fine. And at the same time, of course, I've become somebody who gallivants around the world telling everybody how wonderful it is to slow down. And I've gone to medical conferences and told doctors and nurses about the glories of slow. So when I caught myself having this incident with the back, where I've had back trouble really pretty steadily since my late teens, so, you know, good 20 years ago. And, you know, I've without even admitting it to myself, I had fallen into a kind of carousel of quick fixes with my back, sort of, you know, so I went through every single remedy imaginable, you name it, aromatherapy, reflexology, Reiki, magnetic therapy, hot stones, orthotic soles, ergonomic chairs, you know, et cetera, et cetera. I even saw a Brazilian witch doctor, and who had glowing reviews, as it happens. And I guess what I felt was when I had an incident with my back where it suddenly got much worse, and I was finding it uncomfortable even to be in bed, that I suddenly realized I was face to face with the fact that although I'd more or less got everything else slow, I was still addicted to the quick fix, and it had somehow smuggled under the radar on me, and felt like one of those moments of suddenly seeing yourself in sharp relief from the side, and I felt really ashamed by it, and it made me want to think about this whole idea of problem solving in general. And then ultimately I felt you have to start with honestly at the beginning where it began, rather than somebody else's story or cloak it. And at the same time, I think it shows that, you know, I'm not an oracle, and I'm not a paragon. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes and I go too fast sometimes too. And this was a classic case of it.
Which, you know, later on in the book, you talk about one of the reasons why we keep going for the quick fix is because admitting we're human, not maintaining the notion that we're paragons actually gets in the way of slowing down long enough so that we can get to the root of the true problem. It actually facilitated a lot of the conversation that you write about later in the book. What was it like to set that tone for yourself, and is that part of the way that you arrived on the quick fix solutions or the slow fix solutions that you talk about later on?
I think what you're putting your finger on there is the word humility, maybe. I think that we live in a culture that is the opposite of, it's more hubristic than humble. And it's a culture that pushes us to big ourselves up, to paint the perfect portrait of a life on Facebook. You know, we're constantly pushing up this airbrushed, photoshopped version of ourselves. And that means it makes it very, very hard for us to admit when we're wrong, that we're getting things not right, and that we need to change course. And I think that gets in the way of real learning, and of changing behavior, and of really fixing things properly, because it's so easy when you don't, when you don't allow yourself to admit that you make mistakes and you can't admit it to other people, just to carry on the same track. And for me, I suppose the book started off with my own moment of humility, admitting that even though here I am flying the flag for slow, I wasn't really, that wasn't really what I was doing in practice with my back, quite the opposite. So it was, and you asked how I felt about it, it was a very scary thing to confront. I think failure is a difficult mountain to climb. It's not something that we find easy to get to grips with, especially in the culture we live in today. So I found it frightening at first, but then by sticking with it and confronting it, I came out the other side and felt the opposite of fear, which was a kind of liberation.
If you're building a purpose-oriented business, what you're up to is kind of a deep and complex thing. It can be done simply, but it addresses a complex situation. And complex situations, complex problems can't be solved quickly. We have to kind of take our time, really listen deeply to what the needs of the world actually are, the needs of our people, and our ability to meet them the way only we can. But if you approach it like speed dating, the odds are that's really not going to happen. Here's another quote from Carl's book that's really worth paying attention to. Everywhere you look, health, politics, education, relationships, business, diplomacy, finance, and the environment, the problems we face are more complex and more pressing than ever before. Piss poor performance is no longer an option. The time's come to resist the siren call of half-baked solutions and short-term palliatives and start fixing things properly. We need to learn the art of the slow fix. Now is the moment to define our terms. As a purposepreneur, I want you to know that's exactly what you're up to. You just may not have known that's what it was. And while you go out there into the world trying to meet the needs of your people, trying to figure out what they are and how to present them, maybe receiving advice from people who are all about action, take this message with you as you go. And remember that you're asking yourself to do something we've never done before. It is learn the art, in Carl Honoré's words, of the slow fix, the one that has the chance to change things for the better, change things for good, change things sustainably. That's as much what you're up to as anything else. If you have a chance to take in this book, I highly recommend it. Carl Honoré, The Slow Fix. If this has got you the wheels in your mind turning and buzzing, please make a comment down below. If you disagree with this point of view, I'd love to hear from you too. This is a debate, and having a robust debate can only help us find our way through this. If you think this particular interview and the idea of this book would be good for a friend, please make sure you share down below and let people know. More great stuff coming. In fact, the entire interview will be available somewhere else on the site. So if you want to make sure you learn about all the other extra goodies that are going on, please make sure you subscribe. We don't want you to miss anything. Thanks so much for paying attention to the things that we talk about here at the Soul Map, because that tells me that you're someone who really is out to change the world while making your life and your business better for good. Lisa Bowles, your Soul Mapper, signing off.